XDC is finally being recognized as one of the true crypto hidden gems and most importantly, a literal game-changing project for Web 2 as well. This project is still relatively low in the market cap, hence why I'm making this video because it's so important everyone knows about it, but there are some really big things brewing under the immediate surface that everyone needs to know. Whether you know everything about XDC, whether you're someone hearing this for the very first time, you do need to know more about this project. No, it's not one of run-of-the-mill projects. This is the real deal here, guys. It's up there with Quant, HBAR, XRP, XLM, so on and so forth. So let's get straight into the video. Now, in saying that, I want to give some considerations for this video. Now, while I haven't really used any information from either of these two gentlemen, I want to say these guys are putting in some serious work here on the XDC front, right? So a lot of you will know Cypress already. This guy covers a lot of projects, XRP, XLM, XDC, so on and so forth, right? But Sean, he's actually one of the guys that are actually in the XDC team itself, right? He's in the ecosystem and business development over here in Australia. This guy's a wealth of knowledge, right? He drops gems 24/7. So if you're an XDC fiend like myself, he's a must follow, period, right? And again, Cypress is also a must follow as well. He covers a broad range of projects in details like that's literally mind-bending, okay? So in my opinion, the reason why I'm telling you about these two guys is because I want to start doing this more, because what I found in crypto, just like the real world, like your friend groups, for example, is you tend to become who you hang out with the most. And if I start giving you guys people who you can follow, which no one else seems to do, then you can be caught up with the most recent news. You're not relying on YouTubers who sometimes get the information to you too late. And so therefore you can get it from the horse's mouth themselves. So again, that is super important before we even get started. Now, let's actually get started, right? So I don't want this video to be 15 to 20 minutes long. I want to try to keep it as short as possible. So I'm not going to go into what XDC is. I'm just going to kind of bring you why XDC should be on everyone's mind map right now, right? Because again, it's unlocking trillions of dollars right before our eyes, and they're not hiding it anymore, guys. This is right in front of us, okay? So for those who don't know, XDC is a layer 1 blockchain, okay? It's super fast, super cheap, super secure. It's an excellent network, but the main sort of USP of XDC is one, its connections, which we'll get into in a second, but it's got enforceable smart contracts. So essentially, it's focusing on trade finance, which is a huge market. Obviously, it's like one of the biggest markets in the world. This is like any trade between countries. This is trade between financial institutions, small businesses, large businesses, and everything in between, right? So it's fixing a big problem. There's a huge gap right now where there's a limit for some of the developing countries for small businesses to be able to leverage trade finance. And there's also, a big market for this, obviously, right now because the current solutions are inefficient. So XDC, by the way, who has no competitors really, is saying, hey, we got all the solutions. We can give you enforceable smart contracts. So guess what? If two financial institutions or two institutions want to create a trade for something, it's all on the blockchain and enforceable via a smart contract, meaning if one party doesn't live up to the other expectations, it's cancelled and it can be used to go to court. What a mouthful, right? It's super interesting project because it's only like a 500 mil market cap right now, meaning it's got many multiples on some projects that are equally as good or if not as good, okay? So it's got, I want to bring your attention to this guy right here, right? Impel. This is an ecosystem project, but in of itself, it's just mind-bendingly awesome, right? So it's essentially the protocol that allows XDC to actually be ISO 20022 compliant, which is where a lot of the liquidity and demand will come in for this project, right? So on the 11th of July, there was a global trade finance article written up and referencing Impel specifically, right? Again, 11th of July, this was like last week, okay? So it kind of goes through and mentions Impel over here as a blockchain-based organization dedicated to expanding the possibilities of ISO 20022 beyond its conventional messaging capabilities, which those who don't know, ISO 20022 is very complex. You can send very complicated messages, kind of like you can in crypto, where you can send one message to a different blockchain, it interacts with a whole bunch of dApps and sends it back all in one message. ISO more or less is that sort of standard, at least ISO 20022, right? So, but, Impel goes one step further and actually is implementing APIs, right, for digital assets, and it's just awesome. So it's going to obviously be able to do a lot more things. And again, it's building on XDC. So if we scroll down here, as the industry increasingly adopts ISO 20022, solutions such as Impel's API in collaboration with Fluent Finance, which is obviously a different business in of itself, digital assets and the XDC network demonstrates the potential for heightened automation and efficiency in trade payments. So essentially, Impel's a powerhouse, bringing a lot of demand into XDC in particular, but it's not just ISO 20022 that Impel is basically bringing all this demand into XDC, which, mind you, is important because ISO 20022 is only going to get more and more important as the years go on until a lot of economies do get it integrated within their systems intimately. We will eventually start to see projects like XDC that offers, awesome features like this, enforceable smart contracts, essentially just systemizing and opening up the trade finance market to the world. We won't really see this massive amount of demand until then, but of course you need to be buying the projects that are propelled into that, sort of world. So again, XDC is unlocking trillions of dollars in this aspect thanks to Impel, but also, guys, this is kind of old news now, sure, but Impel also is connected to R3 Quarter. It's the way that XDC is connected to one of the top 3 consortium networks in the world, right? You have R3 Quarter, Hyperledger Fabric, and sort of Consensus's Quorum. These 3, enterprise consortium networks, they have massive, massive partners. As you can see on screen here, just in the R3 Quarter ecosystem, we've got, Commonwealth Bank, Citibank, ING, HSBC, we've got Oracle, Microsoft, Intel, AWS, Google Cloud, MasterCard, the list goes on. There's over 300 members here. So, guys, essentially, Impel is like this 2 birds, 1 stone type of project where it's offering all of these projects on the R3 Quarter ecosystem a public network, because for those who don't know, I don't want to get too technical here, R3 Quarter in of itself is just a private network, right? It's all run privately, and if it were a public one, we'd have some like R3 Quarter token, okay? But we don't, and essentially that R3 Quarter public token that doesn't exist is essentially XDC, right? It's official that XDC essentially is like the public infrastructure layer for the R3 Quarter ecosystem, okay? Which means it's going to spew a lot of demand coming for these projects that want to interact or at least leverage public data, where this gets more and more demand with the smart contracts, the enforceable smart contracts themselves begin to pick up from, adoption, right? So all of this will begin to grow and grow. And I can see massive amount of network effects happening here for XDC because, again, this is going to open up soon. And guess what? Because this is one of the main reasons why I wanted to make this video, because if we come over here, the UK is looking to introduce an electronic trade bill. Now, I've touched on this in a previous video, but there has been some more news recently about this. You might be thinking to yourself, Kyle, what is this electronic trade bill? Well, essentially, the bill, which again is from the UK government here, will remove the legal impediment to allow documents in electronic form to be legally recognized in the same way as paper documents. So right now, you can only do trade finance, particularly with paper documents, which means there's billions and billions, as you can see down here, of papers printed and used each year, which is extremely inefficient, right? So down here, what does it say? The government believes the bill will bring a number of advantages. Obviously, electronic trade documents will be cheaper, simpler, faster, and more secure than paper documents. But of course, the use of electronic documents will reduce trade costs, speed up transactions, reduce error, and bring environmental benefits. So they're getting rid of all these like paper-based things, making it all digital. And guess what? When they make it digital, guess who's going to be there to pick up the slack, right? The enforceable smart contracts from XDC. It's going to be awesome. And right now, the UK economy, or at least the trade, is worth about 1.3 trillion pounds, which is like, up to 2 or 3 trillion USD, which is massive, okay? And so when this begins to unfold, which you need to keep an eye on, which Sean and Cyprus will definitely keep you well and truly informed on, guys, it's going to open up a hell of a lot of doors for XDC. But wait, it does get better. Over here, right, the enforceable smart contracts are looking a little bit more enticing because somewhat recently, and I did cover this news, XDC partnered with SBI VC Trade, which is a subsidiary of a massive financial institution in Japan called SBI. Okay, it's very important we recognize this. Now, as Japan's largest financial institution, SBI has a strong foothold in the 5th largest trade finance market in the world / exporter. This chart over here says exporter, but it pretty much is the 5th largest trade finance market in the world, right? Japan over here behind Netherlands, Germany, USA, and of course, China smashing the market. But what does this allow? Well, the key partnership will help XDC apply its tailored Tradefight blockchain in the Japanese market with, of course, Tradefight, payments, and tokenization. Now, while XDC is hyper-focused on Tradefight, it also does payments and tokenization really, really well. Highly customizable token standard, all right? So again, it offers a hell of a lot. Now, I'm not qualified enough to talk a hell of a lot about XDC and its connections from here. But one more thing I wanted to mention, which kind of ties all this in, is there's actually a connection with R3 Quarter and SBI, okay, which grows and grows and grows because you can start to see here, okay, what's the middleman with all this? XDC, right? XDC is literally planting itself in the middle of Tradefight, right? It's like the most compatible network out there because, again, a lot of these R3 quarter ecosystem projects are specifically in Tradefight. I mean, look at all these banks and regulators, right? Banks, insurers, we have all the, over here, we have like the delivery options, okay? So it is exactly what Tradefight is meant to be, all right? And so obviously over here, it's getting itself in, Japanese markets. And so let's kind of see what's spawned from this. So SBI is actually the largest shareholder of R3 quarter, right? It owns by far the largest amount of shares in R3 quarter itself. And so what it did was it wanted to tailor a whole branch of the R3 quarter, infrastructure itself, the technology into Japanese markets. So what it did was it created a new joint venture between R3 and SBI called the SBI R3 Japanese or Japan sort of ecosystem, right? The technology itself. But because XDC is officially technically the public network of R3 quarter, the traditional R3 quarter, well, this sort of partnership over here with a subsidiary of SBI, again SBI VC Trade, it is speculated that XDC is now going to be used within the R3 Japanese venture as well. So you might be thinking to yourself, Karen, well, that's sort of the same news, she really cares. No, this is different because I could definitely see XDC being leveraged within the Japanese market very intimately before it's leveraged anywhere else, okay? And so obviously they're working together quite closely. And so, you partner that with the massive UK, bill that could be definitely coming out sometime in the next year or two. And of course, we can't seem to forget this down here, right? The ITFA, or the International Trade and Forfeiting Association, which is pretty much the trade association for companies, financial institutions, and intermediaries engaged in global trade, forfeiting, supply chain, and receivables. Okay, so you partner all this together and it's just amazing. Why? Well, because guess what? XDC is the only cryptocurrency partnered with this organization, which again is hyper-focused on Tradefight. All right, I'm going to take a bit of a breather here. You guys have probably just been spammed with information, and this looks like a crazy mind map, like the guy that kind of pinpointed all those dots on the map in that meme, but hopefully it makes a little bit of sense. Like XDC is like these other cryptocurrencies, a lot cheaper in terms of market cap size, and yet in my opinion, it's actually making moves on its intended market, right? There's a lot happening here, guys. And so if you aren't already aware of XDC, you really need to be. I'm going to leave one of the pop-ups in a second on a video that I made previously on XDC. But again, there are a lot more educated people on the matter. One of the guys, his name's Quamfi. He's actually an XDC developer himself, and he obviously tailors all his content around XDC. So I'll also leave his link down below. Please, guys, do not sleep on XDC. It is one of the projects kind of pushing itself, like literally knocking itself in the door of where the world is going, where's crypto going as well, right? Which is this enterprise adopted, global instant payment financial system, and where, the whole world is like this one big unit. And obviously Tradefight makes up a massive part of that. We're talking many trillions of dollars traded per year. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Please go show some love to Sean and Cyprus down below, and I will see you in the next one. Please like the video if you have enjoyed. I upload twice a day, so subscribe for more. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye.